It's time for some straight talk. The big wireless companies charge a boatload for their superior network coverage. But guess what? Straight Talk uses the same cell towers but charges a lot less. Who knew? Well, now you do. And I do. So let's do something. It's time to switch to Straight Talk. Unlimited plans start as low as $35 a month on America's largest, most dependable networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. A month equals 30 days. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
All right, let's do this. It's a Friday, the Russillo Show. Russillo today. We did an NBA pod a little bit later. You can go ahead and check that one out after you've listened to me for 3 hours. If you listen to me for 3 hours, stay straight. Thanks, one, but man, I don't know. I don't know who those guys are. Just on the road all day long. Like whenever you do a show and then somebody's like, "Oh, you did this segment 2.5 hours ago," you go, "Thank you, one," but that's usually not how it works. So we appreciate it. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Here's what we're doing. We don't have Steven Jackson, unfortunately, for another hour today. We hung out in the cafeteria this morning. Not going to say we're best friends. Not saying he's going to start staying with me up here, but we're definitely going to do that again. He had a blast, and I emphasized this throughout the last 24 hours here. Go check it out. The 1 hour with Steven Jackson yesterday, and we may replay some of that, maybe in the third hour, different audience, that type of deal. I also told someone they look really nice today. I think I'm never going to do that again. Tedy Bruschi on the AFC and NFC contenders, surprises or not. I have a little Baker Mayfield thing I want to do, a little Christmas party stuff, but I want to start with last night's Thursday Nighter because, I don't know, was it a good game? It was close. There was stuff that happened, and I'll say that this year's Thursday night games, at least it's not Tennessee and Jacksonville every night, okay? There are better teams playing. We've had some really good games. That Rams-Niners one was a lot of scoring. And even though there were mistakes, and many by Matt Ryan, the first pick and his third pick were terrible. The third pick was awful considering they could have just taken the 3, but they end up tying this game up. They kick a field goal. They're up 20-17, and then the Saints are facing third and short at about the 23-24-yard line, and they get called for holding, so it would have been 3rd and 11 or 4th and 1. Now, at 3rd and 11, it would have backed them up to maybe a 50-yard field goal if they don't get any yards on 3rd and 11. And whereas, 4th and 1, and they go ahead and kick the field goal, we're talking about a much shorter field goal. I'm at home, and I'm watching, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I believe they're just going to go ahead and accept the penalty, back them up, make it a tougher field goal. That's what Chris Collinsworth said. That's, again, what I said at home today. I'm going to ask Tedy Bruschi about that. And Dan Quinn, the head coach, decided to decline the penalty and have the Saints face 4th and short against Peyton, who's a very aggressive coach, even throughout the choke sign last night. I love that Freeman on the other end for the Falcons decided, you know what, I don't care. I don't care that he started saying choke, choke, choke. I guess in reference to the Super Bowl, and Peyton was asked about it last night, and he's like, I don't remember any of that stuff, like he was in a congressional hearing. But you have Quinn decide, I'm going to not accept it, it's 4th and 1, whatever. And he even said after the fact, I thought they were going to kick the field goal, and we'd have the tie game, and that's fine. No. They went for it, they converted it, and then it ends up being a pick, and Atlanta wins the game, so Dan Quinn's good, right? No, that's not necessarily how it works, because even though he gets the win, I couldn't believe that was happening. And I, like you listening right now, if you like sports this much, if you care that much about it, you want to have moments where you feel like you kind of know a little bit more, or you're better. And that's really stupid that we all do this, but I mean by saying we're a little bit better, we know a little bit more. We want to be able to sit at home at times and go, well, I would know what to do here, when we would screw it up way worse, okay? I don't know if it's the emotions. I don't know if it's the calculations of this whole thing. I don't know, like whenever the quarterback and it's 4th and short and he turns to the sideline and says, let's go for it, let's go for it, let's go for it. And you're like, you guys do that every single time, and it must be really annoying as a coaching staff to go ahead and do this. There's play calling guy. Look, my man Will Kane, after the Cowboys lose a game, we hear about the no holds called, and we hear about Scott Linehan's play calling. We never hear about the fact that defense is absolutely getting work for a month plus. We don't ever hear about that part of it. You have a buddy in your group of friends that thinks that his basketball team's head coach stinks every time, no matter who they are. He's also the guy that thinks every time one receiver isn't getting enough touches, he says throw it to him all the time. And if that quarterback throws to that receiver too many times, he goes, he's got to spread the ball out. Second guessing is one of our favorite things to do ever. And I'm not saying like, hey, I was right or now I'm wrong because Atlanta won. I just was very surprised by that whole thing. The Russillo Show, Straight Talk Wireless. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. We got Bruschi on all this and some other stuff as well. I remember I went to a game, college basketball game. I think it was Pitt, UConn. I'm talking years and years ago. And I went with Doug Gottlieb. Gottlieb, close friend of mine at the time, great hoops guy, one of the best hoop guys I know, works at Fox now. So we were sitting together, and I think it was Pitt, UConn, because I never would forget a Jamie Dixon game because he would lose his mind. He's just a tier below Mick Cronin. And Dixon didn't call a timeout in a big spot. Like, UConn was going on a little bit of a run. It was 4, it was 6. Next thing you know, UConn's up 10, and Jamie Dixon never called a timeout. So there was a younger talk show host with us, sitting with us. He wasn't, like, at the game with us, but he was sitting right in front of us. And he turned around to Gottlieb, and he goes, got to call a timeout here, right? And, of course, Gottlieb's like, well, yeah, you probably should have called the timeout at some point. And then that was it. The younger talk show host, that was going to be his thing. He was going to be timeout guy the rest of the game. So there's another little run. And now he feels strong because he goes, man, the hoops guy, Gottlieb, just agreed with me about me calling out the coach here and second-guessing him and me being right and the head coach being wrong, even though the head coach is 1,000 times more qualified to be doing what he's doing. But I feel a little bit closer to it. I feel a little bit smarter because the smart guy, the guy that has a job, did something that I would not have done. And so Jamie Dixon doesn't call another timeout. And now the guy's like, dude, he's killing. He lost the game. He's losing the game right now. He's got you can't take these timeouts with you. Can't take them with you once the game. And so that talk show host the next day did a Jamie Dixon didn't call a timeout segment on the radio show. And it was like, yeah, you might have been right about that one timeout, or maybe UConn was just going to win that game and it didn't matter. But that night, that younger dude, that younger talk show host, he was timeout guy, and he was going to sell us on it. And every time a bucket was made, he'd go, you got to call a timeout here. Got to call a timeout. So, look, we all know what we would do today. We all know the game today. If Quinn were in declining the penalty, having the 4th and 1 converted by the Saints, they go ahead and kick the game-tying field goal, or they get a touchdown, or it goes to overtime, the Saints win, we would be crushing Dan Quinn today. I know why he did it. I heard his explanation. I didn't agree with it in the moment, but you know what? I still know I don't know nearly as much about play calling or timeout situations as an NFL head coach, and I'm okay with that. Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Okay, players, I know this is going to blow everybody's mind here, but an NFL player complained about this game after they lost and blamed it on it being Thursday Night Football. That happens literally every week. So we want to play a game with you, and that would be, did this player win or lose his Thursday night game? 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Russillo Show right here on ESPN Radio.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
I want to play a little game here. I'm actually not going to take any calls on this because I'm just not going to. I don't know. Do we want to? I guess we could. But maybe we could just have them say hi and see how their Friday's going. Last night, Saints lose, Thursday nighter. And guess what? A player who lost doesn't like Thursday night games. Drew Brees.
It's 100% a product of playing on Thursday night. Do you understand what guys' bodies go through, in a game, and then to have to turn around 4 days later and to play? I mean, look at the injury studies. They're off the charts. So is this smart as it pertains to guys' health and safety? No, absolutely not.
So if you look back at the data that we've used in some reports, and you can suggest that the origin of this information is corrupt, for 4 straight years, if you look at injury rate per game, so that's leaving the game, the the injury rate on Thursday has been lower for 4 straight years than games on Saturdays, Sundays, and Monday games. So then you go, well, wait a minute. You're in bed with the NFL. You're in bed with Alabama. You guys are just repeating what they have. Okay, well, Football Outsiders did a story on it as well and concluded that the injury rates appear to be lower per 1,000 athlete exposures on short weeks versus 7-day weeks. So could it just be because of the injury report? Could you poke holes in all this stuff? If you wanted to, I'm sure you could find some way that this information is problematic. But when it's 4 straight years of just athlete exposure to injury and the rate is lower every time on the Thursday night games than any of the other games, does it mean all of these numbers are lies? I'm not telling you Thursday night product's great. I'm telling you it's a little bit better than it's been in the past. I mean, we used to make fun of the very beginning of this year because we were doing that Thursday night fantasy game where we go points for fumbles and bad coaching decisions, and you may have gotten 2 last night with a penalty on Peyton and declining the penalty last night by Quinn. Here's Richie Incognito. Remember when Buffalo lost to the Jets? He didn't like Thursday night games either.
You know, it's tough, man. These Thursday night games, they throw a wrench in our schedule. It's absolutely ridiculous that we have to do this. As physical as this game is, and as much work and preparation that goes into this to force us to play games on 4-day weeks, it's completely unfair and bull. And, you know, whatever. The league makes money off of it, and that's all they care about anyway.
And you guys make 47% of the money on it, too. But so he lost his game. Let's do this. Let's go to Nate. I don't even know where Nate's from. That's how mysterious he is. Hey, Nate. How are you?
Hey, Ryan.
Where are you from, Nate?
I'm actually from San Antonio, Texas, but I grew up watching tapes of Drew Brees out of Austin Westlake.
All right, that was a lot of information, but I think it was all relative. Okay, so here's a question for you. Did this player win or lose on Thursday night?
I think the biggest thing is
no, he definitely.
You have to be able to prepare.
Wait a minute, you were going to answer it before you even heard the sound? You must be amazing at this game.
No, I think I heard it before. You were talking about Drew Brees and his comment, right?
No. I was going to play a piece of sound for you.
So my bad. Yeah.
All right, let's try it again. We'll start over. Here is a player. I want you to tell me whether or not he won or lost on Thursday night.
I think the biggest thing is the preparation part of it. You have to be able to prepare at a very, very high level and process and be very efficient with your time and what it takes to be ready to go. So that's the thing that we're excited about. You know, we do it really, really well as a whole team. And, me and Austin and stuff in the quarterback room, we have a really good plan on how to study and how to plan. So that's a good thing for us. That
was Russell Wilson.
Well, Russell Wilson always gives the boring answer, so I'd say he lost.
Nah, he won that game. Did you think for a second I needed to see whether or not Drew Brees won or lost last night? Like, I'm not that bad at this job.
No, I mean, I assume that you, from hearing what you said, I mean, every time somebody loses on Thursday night, they want to blame the short schedule, and I listened to a little bit of what Golick had to say this morning, and there's no proof. Right.
I mean, and thanks for the call, Nate. So we played Russell Wilson, and that was after a win. Now, you never know with Russ. They could lose by 100, and he's going to keep spirits up. Okay, we got another one here. Here's Richard Sherman. Nick, what's up, Nick? Where are you from?
Calling from College Station, and let me just say, you have a pretty big following down here. I know a lot of people listen to all 3 hours.
All right. That's awesome. Shout out to Jimbo. Okay. Here is Richard Sherman. Did he win or lose on Thursday night?
Poop fest. It's terrible. This is, we played, got home. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that on Monday, and then you got to play again. I mean, congratulations, NFL. You did it again.
This is your part. Yep, win or lose.
I'm going to say he lost that game because I remember that on First Take last year.
That's actually from this year. Again, we were messing with you a little bit. The guys put together the sound today. They beat Arizona, and he called it a poop fest. That's the only audio we could find from anybody, and I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, of players deciding after the win to still dump on it. Here's the deal, and I don't know who said it first. I don't know if it was Belichick, Russillo Show, it's ESPN Radio. Maybe it was Belichick. Maybe it was Socrates. Who knows? But if you give people excuses, they're going to use them. Hey, people that manage people in the office, you're running a landscaping crew. Maybe you got a framing crew. You just picked up your Duncans. You're listening to REO Speedwagon. Guys are smoking. You're trimming around the doors. Who knows? But if you give somebody an excuse, more often than not in life, we are going to take it. And at the very peak of this, the Thursday night excuse is always an excuse for the player. I'm not telling them they're supposed to feel better. I understand that their bodies are not recovering. All I have to do is ask one of the many NFL players we have walking around here all the time. Like, hey, how bad is this? But it is funny that was like the only sound we could find from Seattle players. It's not like Sherman's ever going to compliment the NFL on anything anymore. So that actually wasn't that surprising. Russillo Show, reminder, you can watch all 3 hours of the show on ESPN News. We're going to go through every NFC and AFC contender with Tedy Bruschi, who he thinks it would or would not be a surprise to see win the Super Bowl, and his best trash-talking encounter with Phillip Rivers. It's ESPN Radio. I got so many things that I want to do today on the Russillo Show. Vilma, top of next hour. Unfortunately, we don't have him the whole, 2-hour deal with he and Bruschi, so that means Bruschi solo now. I want to do some Baker Mayfield. I want to do Pollock calling him the number 1 overall pick and the Derrick Rose return, so there's a ton of stuff. But let's start with Bruschi here. I'm going to get to this AFC-NFC thing, okay? So I'm going to ask you about the contenders. But when you hear a player complaining, as we were just talking about on the Thursday night turnaround, and that the football's just a result of it being Thursday football, like how much do you buy into that?
I take it with a grain of salt, man, because it's hard getting ready for those Thursday games. Like you say though, I'm not really one for excuses. You lost the game. It's always more powerful coming from the team that won. That what are we doing here on Thursday nights? I can see how it's hard on players. How it's hard, especially on older players. But in terms of winning a football game, things like that, the other team goes through the same thing. So I look at it that way. I look at it both ways.
I was surprised. Were you surprised with Dan Quinn last night not backing them up on that holding penalty towards the end?
Yeah, I was. That's a 4th and half a yard that you give an aggressive head coach in Sean Payton. He said he thought they were going to kick it, but you back them up. It's a longer field goal. It's a 3rd and 11 where they have to convert. You got a quick young defense where they probably tired a little bit at that point, sure. But to assume that they'll kick the field goal right there in that situation, that's something where I thought he definitely would have taken that penalty.
All right, looking ahead to this weekend, because I don't want to spend a ton of time on the Thursday nighter here.
Yeah, that's guys get hurt. Yeah,
Minnesota at Carolina. Is there a correction period on somebody like a Case Keenum? Playing well, he's bounced around a little bit, and you're like, man, is he really going to be this good? I wonder sometimes in baseball, the first time a team sees a pitcher, it's like, okay, now we've seen him a couple times. Does that happen with you in a defense with a quarterback?
I think so. The correction period or the quality of play progression. There are certain levels of progression that you take through a regular season. September and October, you're really figuring things out. You get towards Thanksgiving, you start pushing towards the playoffs and winning the division. December now, you're playing very meaningful games. They're in a situation where they're playing for the number 1 seed. So the pressure is going to continue to mount. The level of the defenses, the intensity of the defenses that he plays, I think, is going to raise. So that's where you look at it. When he has a chance to win the division, or he has a chance to continue to put teams behind him and put Minnesota in a position to get the number 1 seed in the divisional round after a bye, taking a week off, can he still play at a high level like that? So I look at that way, seeing the level of defenses that he'll play and the level of the games that he'll play, and in terms of, all right, you're still going to be that same way on the road to possibly a championship.
We got Tedy Bruschi, the Russillo Show at ESPN Radio. I want to run through the list of the teams in the playoffs right now, and I want you to stop me. I'm going to ask you a simple question, okay? If this team won the Super Bowl, surprised, not surprised, okay?
Okay.
We'll see how far down we can go.
Yes.
Okay. If the Vikings won the Super Bowl,
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised because I've been on a team that's just gotten hot, and had a quarterback that was named Brady before he was Brady. And we were carrying him.
To let him throw.
Yeah, and we were carrying him with with defense and special teams, and he was dink and dunk passer and being very smart with the football. So that formula is possible.
Okay, the Eagles.
The Eagles, yes, that Eagle defense is up there with the ranks.
So you wouldn't be surprised.
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised. Their defense is up there as one of the best in the league, in my opinion. And when Wentz, I really think Wentz is that type of quarterback, mentally strong, has enough to do in terms of create with his athletic ability. Also, they run the ball well. Yes, absolutely.
Rams,
I'd be surprised. I still am looking to see how Jared Goff does in that progression that I talked to you about in terms of being in the games when it gets to be that division title on the line. He gets to the playoffs and how he plays in the playoffs. There's just various things that I doubt about that quarterback there.
All right, that's fair, I think. Saints,
I would not be surprised. Defense and running game, and a quarterback that once you're called upon, he can throw the ball to win a football game. So I'll say yes.
Seattle?
I'd be surprised with Seattle. I just think that it being all Russell Wilson, 90% Russell Wilson.
That was a great win the other night. It was the secondary.
It was, and for him to continue to just put them on his back like that, there has to be some type of contribution somewhere. But with the injuries on defense and their lack of ability to do certain things like run the football in critical situations, I just don't think it's possible.
All right, what about Carolina?
I think I wouldn't be surprised if they were to win the Super Bowl also. This NFC is very strong.
Yeah, we're not even getting into Atlanta. I mean, technically you wake up today, they're still out of it.
Right. So Carolina's defense and Cam can do special things, so I'd say yes.
Okay, the AFC one might be quicker. You know what I want to do? I'm going to have you come back, and we'll do the AFC quick. So I want to ask you about an AFC team that isn't in it right now. Okay, that's the Los Angeles Chargers. They're 6-6. And Phillip Rivers, I was surprised when I looked this up this morning because I was reading about the O-line. He's basically the least sacked quarterback in the NFL. For guys that play, it's incredible. He has only been sacked, I think, 13, 14 times. What is it about him that makes him difficult, that's specific to him? I mean, you've played against him a bunch. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like people overlook him, but then last year he had 1 million turnovers. There always seem to be close games. What's different about defending a guy like that?
Well, in terms of the sack rate, he knows where his check down is at all times. So the frequency that he gets rid of the football is fast. He trusts. Keenan Allen's playing great football, but Phillip Rivers, he's not going to scramble around and run from you or anything like that. He's just going to get it out of his hands. I think that's his biggest advantage, whether it's in the dirt or in the dirt of a player that's running across the field, because he doesn't want to get sacked, but he's a smart quarterback like that.
Does he talk a ton of garbage did you hate him?
I didn't hate him.
Did you like him?
I didn't like him either. But yeah, Phillip does talk a lot of trash. He's very...
Do you remember anything he said to you?
He's an intense competitor. Yeah.
Come on, give us one.
Okay, I just remember him barking back and forth with us in the huddle. And I couldn't believe this quarterback is motivating our defense to try and, knock his head off or something like that. But Mike Vrabel had one of the best comebacks I've ever heard in the history of comebacks when Phillip Rivers was talking trash to us, and Vrabel just went almost to their huddle, and he says, "Listen, you'll never be Drew Brees. We know it, and they know it." And he pointed right to his huddle.
Wow.
And everybody in the huddle went, "Oh!" And we sort of looked at him and just sort of smiled and nodded our heads. And that was that. That was that.
That is so good. I love that. All right, Tedy Bruschi, he's going to come back real quick. Tell us, we'll go through the AFC. Surprise, not a surprise to win the Super Bowl. That's next. Russillo Show. It's ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Bruschi's hanging with us just to finish up because we ran through it. The Russillo Show, ESPN Radio. Bruschi here still. The NFC, you said it wouldn't be a surprise. The Eagles, New Orleans, Carolina would have won a Super Bowl. The AFC list got to be shorter, though. I'm putting the Pats down as not a surprise. What about Pittsburgh?
I would not be surprised.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Do you think if it comes down to those two teams, home or away, you'll still worry about how just remember, talking with you last year, you go Steelers defensively. Are they going to get out of this zone thing? Are they going to figure out a way to stop Brady? Because it seemed like, that was zone last year, right?
The matchups that the Patriots pose for the Pittsburgh Steelers have always been difficult. They've always wanted to spread them out and make their outside linebackers cover in space. Those type of matchups, they're advantage Patriots. But in a game like that, in a championship game, is it possible for Brady to get a couple tipped passes and there's interceptions and they take them back for a touchdown? Absolutely. When you get to the AFC Championship game, I understand. Certain players can step up. Antonio Brown can have a super game. Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell. I know that offense can score. So absolutely, I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, now it starts getting slim pickings here. Tennessee.
I'd be surprised. Right. Mariota, I look at him as a quarterback, and I just continually see Saturday football, what he's best at. College, running.
I think that's why I've had such a hard time with him.
Stuff. And when he has to sit back there and be a quarterback, it's either, I don't think he's as accurate when he's asked to do that. He has to be on the move. He has to be some type of play action. The running game has to be perfect. So I doubt Mariota.
KC?
Kansas City, I'd be surprised. That defense is just so bad right now. Every aspect of it, taking the ball away, third down, red area, they struggle. And with that, that's where I think their downfall will be.
So do I even have to go any further? Jacksonville, Baltimore, Chargers, Raiders?
Jacksonville, Baltimore. I look to Baltimore. Baltimore, Flacco can get hot. The defense, I know they haven't had a lot of stiff competition in the last few weeks. But I know Dean Pease, the defensive coordinator, he'll have them ready offensively. It's all on Flacco and the offense. Can they put points on the board? Is it possible that he gets hot?
It'd be nice.
Chances are slim, but
it hasn't
sure,
happened in like 4 years.
Maybe.
All right, thanks, Teddy. Appreciate it.
All right, man.
So Tedy Bruschi finishing up that entire field. Tweet the show, 1-800-Flowers.com, Twitter feed, @Russillo Show. This holiday season, the best deals are at 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, when you order the Holiday Light Roses Bouquet, you get double the flowers at no extra cost. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Vilma, top of next hour, just over 10 minutes from now. Two things I want to do. I think I'll have time for both. If we don't, whatever. Derrick Rose is coming back to the Cavs. We have some sound from that. But I did something today that I don't think I'm ever going to do anymore. And I said to someone here at work, I said, "You look really nice today." And I got a worst dude ever response. Why just today? It was not a dude, although I'm starting to think about doing that at work. Just go up to guys. "Hey, you look great today, man. Thanks." So is that 2017 in a nutshell? Or is that social media happening in real life? But I saw somebody who definitely put some extra effort into the way they look today. And I was like, "Hey, you look nice today." And I got a, "Why just today?" So, Rudy, I need your help on this one.
I'm just staying away from it in general. Here's the annoying part is that if she clearly did put the extra effort in, you're just trying to be a nice guy.
That's
and clearly she had done this for a purpose, right? She wants to look good on a Friday. But 2017, I'm staying away from it.
Yeah, I think I'm done with it all. I'm not holding open any more doors. That's over. And there's all this happened this morning at breakfast. Yeah, I'm doing my thing, walking through, somebody I know. But now you're right. Like, I feel weird. Like, I have to self-report myself to HR right now that I said to somebody else that they look nice. So instead of a thank you, I got a why just today. And I want to be like, well, because it's clear. Like, but then if I did that, then what exactly do you mean? Did you assume my gender? Maybe that's the way to do it, is I'm just going to start saying it to everybody. Everyone I see at work. "You look nice today." So then if I'm ever reported, they could be like, "Well, that's Ryan's thing. He says it to everybody. Young, old, tall, short."
Or just don't talk to anybody.
I could also do that. Some people think that's actually what I do here at work, is never talk to any single person while I'm here. But yeah, the doors thing, I've noticed that. I'm getting some eye rolls lately because I'm a big door opener. I think I'm done. With it all. All equal. Head down, 1984, gray jumpsuit. Don't want to talk to anybody because I don't want to bum anybody out. Speaking of bumming dudes out, Derrick Rose is soft. And you're soft if you defend him. I'm sorry. The Derrick Rose saga continues, and he's now coming back to the team. Do we have the sound? I hit this right here? Okay, so we know Derrick Rose missed a bunch of games because he had to get away from the team. And what happened was when you criticized Derrick Rose and other people told you weren't being sympathetic. I am a very sympathetic person. I am sympathetic to the fact that everybody has a deal, everybody has stuff that they're going through, and you have to remember that every now and then when you get a little too caught up in your own stuff. But Derrick Rose, despite all of his injuries, feels like he kind of can do things that other players don't do, like, I don't know, not show up for work. He did it with the Knicks last year. He does this sabbatical. We're actually sitting here debating whether or not he's ever going to come back and play basketball again, which is stupid because he's definitely going to come back and play basketball again. So he's going to come back and play basketball again, and now he's even saying he may need ankle surgery, but he wanted to thank everybody for his time away.
Can you tell us what you told the guys when you came back?
Just told them that I apologize for my actions, but I would like to say thanks to the whole franchise, Kobe, the front office, the players, the coaches, coaching staff. I'd like to say thank you for allowing me my privacy to keep my right state of mind and to keep my happiness.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to come off as kind of harsh on this one, but I mean, how many times, if you're listening to this and you're going, hey, you're wrong, Russillo, you're absolutely wrong. You can't crush Derrick Rose. He's gone through all these injuries. You know, last year was a personal thing. People have to leave work sometimes. People have to do that. But he went missing. He didn't tell anybody last year with the Knicks. And then it got sorted out. And then he brings in the family part of it, so then you feel bad. You're like, okay, that's a family situation. People have family situations. I don't want to do this. But, like, this thing isn't going to be over with Derrick Rose. He gets hurt all the time, and it bums him out. And I understand that. But he's an empty stats name guy at this point who isn't going to help the Cavs at all. And honestly, I don't think as somebody that, like, if he's not on the team, it doesn't matter. Look at them. They've gone on this winning streak, and he hasn't even been a part of this thing. Yeah, he can get you a couple buckets. Yeah, he can still get somebody off the dribble every now and then. But what world is this worth it? And you get Isaiah Thomas back. I mean, it's the kind of signing that you go, okay, Derrick Rose for a couple $1 million, not even this kind of money, no problem. Just go ahead and do it. We're all collecting bodies here at this point, trying to keep pace with the top teams in the league. Teams aren't even worried really about how these things fit anymore. You go, oh, did he make an all-star team once? Okay, done. We'll sign him. So I'm not anti the Derrick Rose signing. I understand it, but you clearly don't need it if you're Cleveland. Your goals are not going to be dictated by Derrick Rose's deal here. And yes, I'll admit, as somebody that does this every day, when I listen to the collection of other voices going, oh, Derrick Rose, you have to understand this. Now, I understand. I've been paying attention to the Derrick Rose story forever. And this thing is done. It's done. And yet, every time he bounces from a team, unlike, you think there are other players that would love a mental break from having to play? Everybody wants a break from stuff, man. And Rose just gets to take them, and I'm supposed to always be sympathetic about it every single time? Nope. I'm not doing it anymore. And I think I was even in the beginning going, I understand his injuries. I understand. Then there was a point where it's like, boy, every time Derrick Rose says something, it's not the greatest angle on how to look at this stuff. I mean, this goes back to when he was initially cleared by the Bulls, and they put a jersey out for him in the playoffs, and he's like, nah, I don't want to do this. So, we all know how this one's going to end. He'll play somewhere else. I don't know if he stays with the Cavs this year. It's cheap. It's not a ton of money. It's not a major distraction. There's a lot of strong personalities on this. But I thought this Derrick Rose thing was very weird, the way it was covered initially. Like, there were more people out there making excuses for him, and when you don't really know the full details, and you go, all right, I don't, and then if it comes back and it's labeled as something else that he's dealing with, then you're going to feel bad after the fact. But I would, I don't know what to do with this guy anymore. All right, coming up next, we got Jonathan Vilma talking some college ball, not in studio, so it won't be as nasty.
It's time for some straight talk. The big wireless companies charge a boatload for their superior network coverage. But guess what? Straight Talk uses the same cell towers but charges a lot less. Who knew? Well, now you do. And I do. So let's do something. It's time to switch to Straight Talk. Unlimited plans start as low as $35 a month on America's largest, most dependable networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. A month equals 30 days. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
This hour, we are perhaps not on TV for a little bit if you're running home to see the sweater I'm wearing today, which isn't that big of a deal. It's pretty basic. But we'll be back on ESPN News once some volleyball finishes up. We've got Anita Marks a little later this hour. She is big on the Cleveland story and Hue Jackson keeping that job. We got life advice this hour, and Baker Mayfield, should he be the number one overall pick? That, according to one of our analysts, coming up. I don't think Vilma would do that. Vilma joins us now. He's usually my co-host on Fridays, but I think he's still down in Florida as we have a little break after the regular season conference championship games in front of the bowl games. But it is Jonathan Vilma on the show Pennzoil Performance Line. Are you in Miami right now?
I'm in Miami, but you didn't say the real reason is because you kicked me out of the show.
No, I didn't.
You said you don't like working with me. You didn't like that I was killing you in the picks, so now I have to do the show from Miami. Did you not say that? Do I have to pull up the text?
Yeah, you know what? If you screen grab that text from my number, you can go ahead and post that if you want to. What's up, man? How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yes, Miami is nice and warm. Art Basel down here, so it's fun times right now. A lot of tourists in here. It's good.
All right. Before I ask that Baker question, because I thought that was kind of interesting. What we would have done if we were here together today, and I don't know how much of my rant you heard on Monday when I got upset with everybody being upset about the selection of the committee here, and that's basically Bama in over Ohio State. But what did you think of the committee job and putting together those four teams?
I thought the committee got it right. I thought that Ohio State was very similar to Penn State last year with a hot team, but a horrible loss at some point during the season that could not get out of the minds of the decision makers. And so I understood Ohio State's argument. They had valid points. I understood Bama's argument. They had valid points. But at the end of the day, if there's going to be some consistency year in and year out, if the committee's trying to create that consistency, that bad loss stuck in my head and automatically brought me back to Penn State last year and why they didn't get in it.
Would you schedule anyone out of conference if you were running a program?
I would schedule more conference games. So you can go to 9 games in the SEC, and then people would stop clamoring about the Mercer victory or the Mercer game that Alabama played. You can get these extra games, and then you don't have to worry about now having this out-of-conference schedule, if it's a cupcake or if it's too hard, wherever everyone wants to go with it. I still believe that there are only, frankly, 10 schools throughout the country that can even afford to play these monster out-of-conference games like an Ohio State versus Oklahoma. USC can afford it. Florida State can afford to. Michigan can afford to. Miami can afford to. Most of them cannot, though. Iowa can't afford to play a big out-of-conference game, lose, and then think that they can still run the table with a one loss and get into the playoffs. It's not happening for them. It's not happening for an Indiana. It's not happening for Wake Forest. Like, they can't afford to play these big out-of-conference games.
Yeah, see, I would try to schedule somebody with a pulse. Like, that would be my thing. And I actually don't have an issue if Florida is playing Florida State and they're playing Michigan, the FCS thing doesn't drive me crazy. Okay, when Alabama scheduled Florida State, the FCS thing does not drive me crazy, and I always find it funny. Look, Big Ten fans can puff out their chest. They play the directional schools. They play the extra conference game, which they always would ignore when the Pac-10 and Pac-12 were doing the 9th conference game. The ACC plays just as many FCS opponents as the SEC does. But if you're, say, Baylor, and yeah, you have the 9 conference games, but you're every year living on, SMU, Lamar, Rice, play somebody with a pulse. But I don't know if I were Ohio State or Oklahoma or Florida State, if they were going to be good, or Alabama, if I would be playing other teams perceived to be in the top 10, because I think I'd rather have the W against a lesser opponent than a better chance at a loss.
I agree. I would go that route as well. The problem with playing someone with a pulse, they still won't give you credit for it. So even if you play, if Baylor decided to play Vanderbilt, right?
Well, they
have a pulse,
They played Duke
team.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's just say that season, because they plan these seasons out 3 years in advance, whatever it is. So let's just say that season they play, they have a down year. You get no credit for it. It's a tougher opponent. You had, for all intents and purposes, you could have lost just as easily if you lost a conference game, but you won't get any credit for it to have a down year.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Vandy might be a tougher sell as that pulse thing. I look, just play somebody. But if I were an AD, I don't know that I would. If I were running Ohio State or Oklahoma, I'd be saying, "Hey, let's make sure we do this thing again." All right, we got Jonathan Vilma here. It's a Russillo show. It's ESPN Radio. What's your take on all the Baker Mayfield stuff that we're going to debate here at that position as we get? I mean, we're months away from the draft. He's got a championship he's trying to win, but what do you see as a guy that played at both levels?
So I see a guy who is the best player in college football. The best player in college football does not equal the best draft pick when it comes to the NFL. There are very subtle yet important differences between the two. When you're the best player in college football, that could very well mean that you maximize your abilities and your talents. So he may not be the most talented quarterback, like a Sam Darnold or a Josh Rosen, yet he has maximized his abilities, which has made him the best player right now in college football. So now you take that and you say, okay, we see Baker Mayfield. Now let's put him up against what we view as a number one draft pick for the NFL. Does he have the height, weight, speed? That can be argued. Does he have the mechanics? That sometimes yes, not all the time. Does he have the vision? Does he read? Does he anticipate? Yes, in a wide open system he does. What about in a pro style? That's TBD, to be determined. We don't know. Then you talk about some of the characteristics that would make him a number one pick. Does he study hard? Is he a good locker room guy? Is he a leader at the quarterback position? All of those things I don't know. I haven't researched him or done any homework on him, but there are a lot of tangibles. There are a lot of subtle things that you have to take into account, which are very important, that we cannot find out just watching him week in and week out. You're going to find that out as you do your due diligence on the player. So he could very well be a top 5 pick, maybe. I'm not going to go out there and say he's definitely a number one because there's too many variables involved.
That was like the nicest way of ever saying that you don't really buy in.
No, not at all.
That's not the Vilma I know. I thought you went. Like, it sounds like you don't know, which is okay.
I'm honestly saying I think he's the best player right now in college football. Mm-hmm. But remember, he's 6 feet, 6'1", maybe at the most. It doesn't look like he has long arms. I don't know his hand size. I know he can spit the ball out. I know that he loves to run around and improvise. Yet he's not the fastest guy, so I know that he can't run around like that in the NFL. I know he's going to eventually have to sit in the pocket and make big league throws. I don't know if he can do that consistently. I just haven't seen it. I've seen everything else that he's done. I just haven't seen him do big league throws, sit in the pocket for 2 quarters of a game. I haven't even seen that much. He's always scrambling, doing something, making something awesome happen. So that's why I just don't know. I don't know.
That's a very fair answer, and it's okay to say that. Okay, last one, Miami.
Back, folks.
What happened?
Are you referring to the ACC championship game?
That would be what I'd be talking about, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that game,
folks.
Yeah, Miami ran into what they call some grown-ass men in Clemson. That's what happened. And Clemson reproved that that's even a word, why they are the best team in the ACC, and it's not even close. And so that's all you can say, that was a wake-up call for Miami. That was a wake-up call for the rest of the ACC, that Clemson is a bunch of grown men among boys right now, and everyone needs to catch up.
Is that who you're picking for the whole thing, or have you done that yet?
That is who I'm picking, but in a very, very close game, to the point that I wouldn't be surprised if they lost by more than a touchdown. Like any one of these games can go either way, and anyone in the championship, it could go either way.
Hey, man, I miss you up here today. Seriously. So we'll see you, are you coming back up here one more time before Christmas?
I'm coming back Friday. Yeah, I'm coming back Friday. I'll bear the cold weather. I'll even bring a nice turnover chain sweater just in case. I still got a rep.
All right, man. That sounds good. All right, hopefully I'll see you later.
All right, Ryan. Take care.
All right, Jonathan Vilma, Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Live advice, 15 minutes, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Okay, one of our guys said Baker Mayfield should be the number one overall pick. But we have breaking news. Ohtani, the Japanese Babe Ruth, has signed with a baseball team. We'll tell you what that team is next. Russillo Show, ESPN Radio.
Computer, execute 12.4p operation.
Optimizing algorithm. Running encryption packet alpha. Night. Oh, I don't feel so good.
What is it, computer?
Is it hot in here? It feels hot in here. I feel a little clammy. I should lie down or something.
A computer with a virus? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Those oysters Rockefeller were a mistake.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
We have breaking news here in the Russillo Show. Shohei Ohtani, the Japanese Babe Ruth, 23-year-old outfielder and potential ace pitcher, front of the rotation guy, has signed with the Los Angeles Angels. Job well done by the Angels signing Ohtani. Job well done is brought to you by Napa Auto Parts. With quality parts and know-how, Napa Auto Parts can help you keep your ride running longer, stronger. That's Napa know-how. So there you go. There was a bunch of weird stuff that I was reading about this morning. People thought the Cubs were going to get him. Then the Yankees mysteriously were out of this thing early on, even though they had done the international money stockpiling. And that's kind of what had happened here, is that Major League Baseball, and this makes sense, they go, why are we letting players come in that are younger making all this money that are international signings before we know what's going on? And since he wasn't 25 when he came over, if he had come over when he was 25, he may have made like $100 million in a contract. So Ohtani is now going to make way less than that, but he wanted to come over. If you saw the 60 Minutes piece on this guy, it's make-believe. And I don't know what's real or what's not, but I can't tell you how I'm so excited about this because I want to see it. I want to see if the guy that was every high school stud who was the baseball equivalent of Ohtani, you know what I mean? Like you grew up with him. Maybe you were one of them. You were the shortstop, and then in the fifth game you pitched, and you were awesome. And you hit and you pitched, and then whatever. If you're really good, you went to college. And maybe you could still hit a little bit. And then if you were good enough to get to the minors, like it was over. It was done. Madison Bumgarner hit some home runs. Sweet. Mike Hampton could turn on one every now and then. But most every pitcher always ended up stinking. And no one would ever think of a guy like, well, how could it be that we could never have one? And then Japan has one. So that's Ohtani's deal. He's about 6'3", 190. He turns 23 years old. He did this past summer. And in his peak year in 2016 with 104 games, he hit 22 homers, 67 ribbies, batted .322. He hit .332 in less games in 2017. But in that 2016 season, I mean, these are his ERAs in the last 3 years, 11-4 with a 2.6, 15-5 with a 2.2, 10-4 with a 1.86. And innings pitched, hits numbers are insane. The last year was 140 innings pitched, 89 hits. The strikeout numbers, 174 strikeouts and 140 innings. If you saw the 60 Minutes piece, you go, I want this. I want it all to work. He basically lived in like this dorm over there, pitching for the Nippon Ham Fighters. It's Nippon Ham, not Ham Fighters. And you know, like he seemed to be this dude, and everybody knows what a rock star he is over there. But it was different in the sense that he just was like, look, I just go to the ballpark, and then they would show him warming up, and he'd be throwing a baseball up against the wall. Athletically, he's off the charts here, too. So I'm just curious to see it all because it's new. Not curious in the Daisuke Matsuzaka way, which I was super curious. Not in the Yu Darvish way. The Ichiro way, which I'll admit in the beginning you go, whatever, we'll see how this goes. And you're like, okay, he's one of the greatest hitters the game of baseball has ever seen, but did Seattle just get him because they have Nintendo money? And then, you know, like that's the way I used to think about it. Be like, oh, yeah, you know, yeah, Japanese guy, yeah, figures. You go with the Nintendo money. But Ohtani goes with the Angels. The other weird thing about this story, and again, Shohei Ohtani, Japanese baseball player, signing with the Angels, that just came down. Joel Sherman, I believe, was the first to have that. That he gave out a quiz to ask teams how he was going to be used. And Buster Olney had a piece on .com this morning that said that baseball was very interested in investigating how this all went down. Because this isn't like the blind bids in the past where you just go to Daisuke Matsuzaka's team and go, here's $51 million, we've won the bid, which is insane now you think back on it. Like, we pay you $51 million, now we have the right to give him a $50 million contract, and the player saw like less than half of it. So it was basically like soccer almost, right, Cerruti, where the money is going to the baseball team that has the players' rights, and then Daisuke comes over, and you go, this isn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Yu Darvish has been pretty good, right? Ichiro was great. But Ohtani, this isn't just the foreign baseball player that we haven't really seen. You're like, are you seriously telling me this guy's going to be like the number 2 starter for the Angels, to be batting second the other days? Like, are we going to screw this up? It's kind of my whole thing with sports. Russillo Show, it's ESPN Radio, where you go, maybe everybody's just smarter at doing this stuff now. Maybe you should have been passing more on first down. Maybe you should have been spreading out defenses. Maybe you should have had smaller linebackers that are hybrid safeties that can run around and cover more people. Maybe we should have been taking more threes. Maybe we should have been non-position specific in basketball and just let the best players close games. And instead of going small, call it going better. Maybe we should have the best athletes that are growing up that are great hitters and great pitchers to see how far they can go with this thing. Like, how could we have not had one? And Japan does it before us? No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to turn this into a rant. So that was part of this whole deal where Ohtani was reaching out and his reps were like, how would you use him? So it wasn't really about money. It was going to be about market and how comfortable Ohtani and his reps were with how the American team would use him. And then, as Buster pointed out again this morning, is there can be no, hey, sign this small, little, new international rule deal with us now, and we'll give you all the international money that we can. It's not a lot of money, man. We're talking about, like, I don't know what the Angels' final number is, but it's every team was like less than $5 million at most. And some teams are trying to, like, there was the Cubs being rumored to be able to offer him like $300,000 in this whole thing. And some people thought the Cubs were still going to get him. But that baseball Manfred, that they're very sensitive to this and they want to investigate and make sure whoever ended up with him, so it's not specific to the Angels, but whoever got him, they're going to go, we better not find out about some wink deal. Hey, when you're up and we can pay you more, here are what the terms are already going to be no matter what. So if Ohtani stinks and then he ends up with a massive contract, like $15 million a year, you'll know something was up. But again, I remember talking to people thinking that Prokhorov was going to give NBA players land and mines in Russia in some province, and no one would be able to figure it out. And I don't think that's happened because unless Okafor is really pumped about some zinc. So the final numbers here accordingly. All right, so the Angels weren't even at the top. So the Mariners, this is the signing bonus, I believe, on the international pool money. So everybody, all these baseball teams were trading all these pieces around, trying to figure out a way to trade for the other team's available international pool signing money. I know this sounds, it's almost like trading for somebody else's cap space, okay? And the Mariners had the most. So I'll admit, I thought Nintendo money, again, perhaps. They had $3.5 million, just like a couple grand over where the Rangers were. The Angels had $2.3 million. The Cubs, Dodgers, Padres, the Giants all had $300,000. So that's the bonus money. And his overall salary isn't very much in the beginning of this whole thing. This is Ohtani's agent saying, quote, I want to thank the clubs and everyone else for respecting our intent to make this very important process as private as possible. We were resolved to having a fair, methodical process. Teams clearly put in a lot of work. We're grateful that the past few weeks also further demonstrated Shohei's incredible thoughtfulness, attention to detail, and determination to make an informed decision. He read every page of every presentation and listened to every word in each meeting, and he was so impressed that it was not an easy choice. While there's been much speculation about what would drive Shohei's decision, what mattered to him most wasn't market size, time zone, or league, but that he felt a true bond with the Angels. He sees this as the best environment to develop and reach the next level and attain his career goals. More than ever, I believe this is not only a special talent, but a man of special character, and like everyone else, I'm excited to see him in Major League Baseball. How many of you that thought you were getting him hear this news and go, whatever, dude, he's probably not even that good? All of you? Then that makes us all the same, doesn't it? Again, Shohei Ohtani, member of the Los Angeles Angels. What do you want to do, Cerruti? Your call. Life advice or Baker Mayfield? Life advice, loosen things up here a little bit. If we get somebody on the Shohei thing and, whatever, we'll keep you posted on that. So Ohtani with the Angels. Life advice, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. It's ESPN Radio. Shohei Ohtani, as you just heard in Kevin Winters Sports Center, now a member of the Los Angeles Angels, working on trying to get Buster Olney to come by. I've got a Christmas party segment that I may want to do. I'm not sure. And we got Anita Marks coming up a little bit later this hour. Russillo Show, it's ESPN Radio. A break from that, though, right now. Life advice brought to you by Upside.com, giving all business travelers the gift of a better travel experience this holiday season. Upside.com.
I would just walk in and go, what's the plan, bro? Why are you sleeping until 1? We need to start stripping it back down to the base.
It's your life and our advice.
Let me fix your life, not just your back porch.
Solo today. So the only thing you have today is not a Super Bowl winning linebacker or lawyer, Will Kane, a movie aficionado, just me. We'll go to Mike. Wow. Mike in Chicago. Hello, Mike.
Yo, what's up? I didn't know you were talking. Hey, what's up, man?
How are you? It's been a while.
Yeah, dude, I got a new job, but I'm off today, so I figured I'll watch some college volleyball and call the show.
Yeah, that's right. College volleyball running a little late, but we're back on. So what's the new?
Good stuff.
Do you have anything to ask, or you just? I don't mind.
Yeah, no, I got a scenario that I'm in.
Okay, break it down.
So I've been dating this girl for like 3 months. Like, she's good looking, like she's cool, she's chill. And then I introduced them to my best friend. All of a sudden, like, my best friend starts dating my girlfriend's best friend. And it's just like, I see like nothing positive happening out of this. So I need advice how to like indirectly slow things down.
You could accuse. Here's what you could do, Mike, and it's great that you're checking in. Can I just ask? Actually, I could do the whole thing with Mike, and I don't like the follow-up questions normally as much as this, but what are you doing now that's new? Because weren't you an accountant before?
Yeah, well, I do. No, I stopped doing that. Then I became a manager at a store, and now I'm working in an office for like a meat distributor.
Okay, meat distributor. All right, distribution. Okay, so here's the deal. You could do one of two things. You could sabotage your best friend and make up stuff about him so he gets dumped, problem solved, or you could enjoy it. I've only once in my life, a serious girlfriend that her best friend was dating my best friend, and it was actually awesome. We'd go to Montreal together, and then me and my buddy could do whatever we wanted because they would shop. If there was stuff they wanted to do that we didn't want to do, we would just go hang out and go do stuff. So I think you need to embrace the positives as you get a little bit older in life and try to make it work. But you sound kind of young, so you'll probably sabotage it. All right, let's go to Josh in Cincinnati.
Ryan, thank you for taking my call. Love the show, man.
Of course, Josh.
All right, here's my question.
Yeah.
Got a pretty good job that I've been at for the last couple of years. One of those very high-stress, high-reward environments, work 6 days a week. Trying to find that work-life balance. The question is, do I I've basically interviewed and been offered a different position with a different company, slight pay cut, a little bit more work-life balance, but it could lead to even better things that I'm doing now. Do I take the risk and jump ship, or do I stay with what I'm doing?
You got a family? You got people that depend on you?
Actually, we're getting ready to have a kid, our first child in May, me and my wife.
Can you be happy with the other thing, or you're going to be miserable doing the slightly higher paying job? I mean, I look at it this way. There's a price that you can put on me not having as much work-life balance. And you have to understand what that price is. And you have to play this game where you go, will I feel the same way or worse in 2 years, or will I feel okay? Like, it sounds like you wouldn't totally be against keeping the better deal right now financially, but if it's not that big of a gap and the other things you dream and there's even a chance for further growth and more money, like, I always want everybody to follow their dreams, but usually I want them to do it when they don't have a kid.
Yeah. I guess the only other X factor in it is, my wife doesn't mind that I'm home now, but when you add a kid into the mix, that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Is it going to become a different dynamic? She says, hey, you need to be home more, that kind of thing.
All right. Well, yeah, then you can tell her, okay, here's the balance. Just don't get worried about the checking balance every 2 weeks. Let's go to Marty in New York.
Hey, how you doing?
Super.
So I called 2 weeks ago,
Yeah,
and
you
I
did.
was dating my girl for 5 months, if you guys remember. So
Yeah.
I moved her in.
Good.
I come home 2 days ago, and my so-called best friend who set us up is sleeping with my girlfriend. So my question is, I kicked it to the curb. My best friend is trying to make it up to me and stuff. I know it's from kindergarten. So I give him another chance, or just tell him to F off?
Whoa, a lot, Marty. And Marty called us not that long ago. We said definitely let her move in. And it appears we gave you bad advice. There's a positive here, is you could have a third roommate, let them both live there, split the utilities. Now we're talking water bill is a third instead of half. But it sounds like you probably should just meet some new people and get a new friend altogether. Yeah, don't be friends with him again, because he'll do it to you again, and I don't know what to tell you. He must be a really good-looking guy if she went for it. Chase in Philly. God, that was a terrible call. Sorry, Marty. Feel bad for you.
Hey, Ryan. Long time, first time. Albert Torrey.
All right, LT.
Here's the dilemma. I got a buddy of mine right now. We are driving en route to a wedding in Rochester. I'm a grad student in Philly. I just found out I got 2 tickets to the Army-Navy game tomorrow back in Philly. What do we do? Do we turn this thing back around and go to the game?
Are you going to see friends at the bachelor party?
No, it's a wedding. We'll see friends. It's the guy's getting married. We played college ball with. He played in the Astros this year, so there's that element of it.
He played for the Astros this year. Is he going to keep playing for the Astros?
Yeah, that's the goal. So
yeah, stay friends with him. Stay friends with him because that could have bigger dividends than Army-Navy tickets. I understand the tradition. You feel a little more American walking around Army-Navy, but Navy's 6-5. So this isn't the national championship, and I think you need to go to the wedding. I would actually pass up tickets to go hang out with my buddies, and I would pass up any sporting event now just to actually have friends for a weekend. Roy in South Dakota, we'll do one more.
Another job question for you, Ryan. I've got a stable job, a steady income. I've got 3 mouths to feed.
What's the job?
Flexibility. I work in a medical office.
Okay, medical
It's
office.
not fantastic. The life trajectory isn't going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of set here. Or I got an offer to go into what you love, real estate. Do I drop it all and start slinging houses? I can't sell sight to a blind guy. What do I do?
All right, what's the property tax situation? Because right now when I monitor all real estate transactions, it is based solely on, is the state screwing over its residents with a property tax hike to make up for some other mistakes? Whereas I look at these other states that are going, fine, we don't care. Bring your money here. We want the population bump. We're not worried about the tax. So if you can get if you're in an area where property tax is a positive for the buyer, then you can do this right now, because I think you're going to start seeing a lot of people deciding, I've had it with these states that are killing people. So if you're in a position, I don't know the South Dakota numbers off the top of my head, but if you're in an area where people are going to start moving, although I don't know if South Dakota is going to be that spot.
It's cold.
Yeah, I know. We've talked about this before. I think can't you kind of do a little of both? I know that's a lot of
thought process right now.
Yeah, I think you could do a little bit of both, do a little bit on the side. My mom did a little of that stuff on the side, and you can see me like, hey, I like this. I've got good leads, or this is a terrible idea. Okay, Shohei Ohtani is going to be looking for real estate in Los Angeles. Breaking news, he's with the L.A. Angels. We'll do that top of next hour. Anita Marks on why the Hue Jackson situation, his story continues in Cleveland. Some other football stuff with Anita coming up here. Russillo Show, ESPN Radio. So Buster Olney's going to join us, 3:15 Eastern. Breaking news, Shohei Ohtani, the Japanese Babe Ruth, as he's known, 23-year-old outfielder and starting pitcher, signing with the Los Angeles Angels. Joel Sherman on that report first. We have stuff up on ESPN.com right now. So we'll get back to that breaking news story coming up here very shortly. The Russillo Show on ESPN Radio. We got Anita Marks with us now. Also a reminder to tune in Sunday. Football doubleheader. Vikings visit the Panthers and the Cardinals host the Titans. Pregame begins at noon Eastern on most ESPN radio stations. I know that you have all this great stuff on this Cleveland deal as they're trying to figure out Sashi Brown out as general manager. I've read through a bunch of this, but Hue Jackson, you seem to know like the pieces involved here. What was the biggest disconnect between the coaching staff and the front office?
I think it was the fact that it was just an organization that was 100% committed to analytics in regard to the players that not only they drafted, but players that they coveted in free agency, i.e. Kenny Britt. So, and also, Hue Jackson came in. I don't think he was told the entire truth in regard to the veteran players that they traded off. One thing that if you've played football, you've been around an organization, when you have a losing culture that players get used to, that could be a cancer, and that could have a long-term effect, especially on young guys that they have bringing in. And so it was just bad. It was a bad situation. They've lost a lot of games. And at the end of the day, really, it's an organization that doesn't value a coach's decision, coach's opinion in regard to scouting a player, and it was all analytics. There was no happy medium.
How did they come to the realization? Because I had read something that Hue Jackson actually wanted Myles Garrett, so they take him with the number 1 pick instead of trading back down. How big of a deal was that?
It was a big deal because if you recall, if you go back to the draft, leading into the draft, there was some speculation. There were some reports out there that the Cleveland Browns were going to take Mitchell Trubisky. But hands down, Myles Garrett was the best player in this draft. You have the number 1 pick overall. And it was kind of like in the 11th hour that there was a lot of back and forth. And even as the pick was about to happen, I think there were a number of people out there waiting to see what were they going to do. Were they going to take Myles Garrett? That's who Hue Jackson had wanted, and sure enough, he was able to get him. But it took a lot for that pick to happen.
Now, John Dorsey is brought in to be the general manager. Sashi's out, but even Paul DePodesta was above Sashi Brown. And this is still a scouting department kind of built with this analytic approach in mind. So how are they going to figure this whole thing out now with a month to go before the draft?
Well, a few things. Number one, it's important people realize it wasn't just Jim Haslam who was overseeing and doing these and conducting these interviews for the next general manager to come in. Hue Jackson was a part of it. So I know there's some speculation. Wow, is Dorsey going to keep Hue Jackson? Well, Hue Jackson was a part of the decision to bring Dorsey in. They're a team now, and they're going to be working closely together. It's very, very hard. Okay, so now Sachi's gone, but you have an entire scouting department that has spent a year evaluating players. It's very hard, and you could say the same thing what's going on with the Giants, right? Jerry Reese is gone, but Mark Ross is still there. A lot of that scouting team is there because the Giants have to get ready for the combine and the draft. Same thing for the Cleveland Browns, and there's a lot of information there. So, both those departments are safe right now, but and I don't know what is going to happen, but I would not be shocked if after the draft, changes are made even further with both those organizations.
We're talking with Anita Marks here, the Russillo Show. It's ESPN Radio. I don't know if frustrated is the right word, but I'll hear some people say just flat out, oh, Hue Jackson can't coach. Look at the record. When you hear that, when they won 1 game in 2 years, what's your response when people are that critical of Hue in the record?
If you look around the NFL and you look at teams that are winning football games, the most important position is quarterback. And unfortunately, the Cleveland Browns have not drafted the quarterbacks that Hue has coveted. He wanted Jared Goff. He wanted Patrick Mahomes. They tried to trade for A.J. McCarron and unfortunately couldn't get the paperwork in to the NFL office.
All right,
in
the
time.
way you say that makes me think that because I don't know which.
On,
I don't know what. Like all the versions of the A.J. McCarron story were bad versions.
Right.
So it's. Did you agree to the trade when you didn't want to? Like, what do you think happened there?
I think keep in mind, Hue Jackson coached A.J. McCarron with the Cincinnati Bengals. He knows him really well. The conversations I've had with you about A.J. McCarron is he's a huge fan. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if A.J. McCarron might be the starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals next year if he's able to work out this. Keep in mind, he's trying to list himself as an unrestricted free agent as opposed to restricted. If that happens, I wouldn't be surprised if A.J. McCarron is the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, with bridging that gap with whatever quarterback they go out and they draft this year.
So wait a minute, you're saying A.J. likely starter of Cleveland, not Cincinnati?
Might. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay. So I just when you need a good quarterback, if not a great quarterback in the NFL to win football games, and unfortunately, Hue Jackson has not had that to work with. We saw a glimpse of Josh Gordon. Oh, my God. I mean, Casey Hayward came out this week and said, man, this is the best wide receiver I went up against all year. It's unfortunate that Josh Gordon was dealing with the issues that he was. He didn't have him. They let Terrell Pryor go to Washington. I think that was a matter of Washington not using him properly and him really respecting and loving the way that Hue Jackson utilized him in Cleveland. So he didn't have the horses in his stable to win football games. But I mean, am I blaming it all on that? No. I mean, there's some games there that maybe Hue Jackson could have called better time management, whatever the case. I'm not saying it's 100% on the organization, but listen, you need a good quarterback and you need good players in order to win in this league.
Yeah, we agree on that. I'm not looking at that record saying he can't coach. That's Anita Marks. Coming up next, Buster Olney, Shohei Ohtani to the.
Guys, wouldn't your wife or girlfriend love it if you treated her to the very best this Christmas? Now you can, with the world's softest pajamas by Pajamagram. Created by a team of pajama experts, the world's softest PJs are lighter than a cloud, softer than a bunny, like cashmere, only better. She'll love how heavenly they feel. Includes free gift packaging and Christmas delivery is guaranteed. So visit pajamagram.com or call 1-800-GIVE-PJs.
As you heard from Kevin Winter in our Sports Center, and Did a segment on that. In the second hour of the show today, Russillo Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Shohei Ohtani, the Japanese Babe Ruth, signing with the Angels. Los Angeles Angels there. So not the Dodgers, not the Yanks, not the Cubs, not the Padres, not San Francisco, not Seattle. I think I remember at some point being convinced it was going to be any of those teams at any given time. And Buster Olney will help us sort that out and the issue the Angels could have with the fact that they actually got the dude. All right, but let's talk some NBA because we haven't really done much of that. We did a little of the Derrick Rose thing. Maybe I'll start there with our man. Brian Windhorst joins us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. Brian, what's up?
Hey, Ryan.
I think we are generally sympathetic people. I think in the media that can become the case even more so because we're around the players. Certainly you're around them a lot more than I am. But like the Derrick Rose thing, I saw a lot of media members going, hey, this guy's been through a lot. He's been through a lot of different injuries. But then I kind of look at it and go, oh, what? So you get to keep taking the breaks? I don't think he means anything to Cleveland. He's a nice spare piece. It didn't cost that much money. But him coming back and thanking I get. But at the same time, if I were running Cleveland, I'd be kind of over his deal at this point. Your thoughts?
All right, let's say a couple things that maybe we can agree on. Number one, it's not Derrick Rose's fault that he has been injured. It's not because he's been out of shape or anything like that, right? Do we agree on that?
We do.
Over the course of his career?
Yes.
Number two, can we agree that Derrick Rose's decision-making at times has not always been ideal?
Yes.
Okay. So we have those two things that coincide, and that makes for a complicated situation. From what I understand here, Derrick was told that there was a probability or a possibility that he may have to have surgery on this injury at some point, and that information really was a blow to him, as you can imagine, because he's had a lot of surgeries and a lot of recoveries in his career, and he's at a point in his career where he thought, he could get one more big contract, and that was going to be a setback for him. I've been around covering the league long enough to know that situations in December a lot of times change dramatically over the course of the season. So as of right now, do the Cavs have a place in their rotation for Derrick Rose? No. In fact, you could argue that Derrick Rose leaving the team with an injury helped spur them on to the winning streak that they're on now because they made changes in their lineup, including letting Dwayne Wade play backup point guard that triggered them playing better. And so even if Derrick Rose was 100% healthy and was cleared to play today, I don't think he would play. But does that mean that he won't have some use for them in 4 months? Not necessarily. And that's why I think the Cavs are going to keep this alive. Now, if there's a player that comes along in a buyout situation in March where they're able to get their hands on a guy who they think materially can help them and they have to cut Derrick Rose at that time, that's a down-the-road situation. But I also think the Cavs always take the long view of things, and that's why they've tried to keep the door open, even if Derrick Rose doesn't look like he's the greatest fit today.
Yeah, I think we agree on all of that stuff. You were just a little nicer about it than I was.
Okay.
I don't want to spend all the time on Derrick Rose here, but what is it about Cleveland? We know the defensive carryover where it started at 5-7 at one point. What is this team doing now that we're going, okay, this makes sense again? They should be the best team in the East.
Well, since the injuries to Tristan Thompson and Derrick Rose, they basically started playing lineups that shoot three-pointers more. Early in the season, they were playing Dwayne Wade and Derrick Rose together. That was a failure. That was how they started games at the start of the season. And Tristan Thompson, not a three-point shooter. Channing Frye was basically not playing. And so they've gotten back to shooting three. And that's the way they were designed to play. Now all of a sudden they're back to being a top 5 offense. The other thing is, their second unit, which has basically been led by Dwayne Wade. I mean, Dwayne, if I were Derrick Rose, I would be spending time with Dwayne Wade because Dwayne Wade is giving the clinic that veteran players who are stars where they transition their careers. Dwayne Wade is playing phenomenally as a role player. Right now, Dwayne Wade's averaging more points than any LeBron James bench player has as a teammate in his career. So LeBron has never had a support system off the bench like Dwayne Wade is giving him right now, both in making the plays, being a playmaker and setting up his teammates, and also providing leadership when LeBron's off the court. Just because Dwayne Wade was an all-NBA player for so many years doesn't change the fact that he cannot be valuable in this role now. And so what you have now is the most dominating or one of the most dominating second units in all of the NBA. During this winning streak, the Cavs second unit is outscoring the opposition second unit by like 13 points a game. And then to put the cherry on top of all of that, LeBron's playing phenomenally.
Yeah.
He is playing at absolutely an MVP level. He has never shot the ball better. I think one of the things we do when we evaluate fourth quarter clutch play is we look at the offensive stats, and his have been awesome. Ryan, he's playing such a high level defensively. Some nights he's guarding the opposition power forward. Some nights he's guarding the opposition center. Some nights the point guard in clutch situations. He is playing at an extraordinarily high level. And here you have the Cavs back playing at the top level that we all thought they could at the start of the season.
What are you willing to allow yourself to believe about Houston and what they can be on nights like last night when they just look? I mean, and I know Utah's missing pieces here and there, but this has been a really – I mean, look, I don't think people realize you wake up, if you check your standings, they actually have a better record than the Golden State Warriors.
Right. So last night Ryan Anderson went 9 of 11. On nights when they have their role players like Eric Gordon and Ryan Anderson shoot well, like on nights when Eric Gordon goes 6 of 8 from 3, they're going to win. And the question with the Rockets has always been, how can they play when they're not hitting on all cylinders? What is their margin for error? Their defense has dramatically improved. My colleague, Chris Herring, wrote a story for 538 yesterday, and he had a fact in that story that, to me, Ryan, defines the Rockets team. They are the number 1 defense in the league after a made basket, which means if they can get back and set their defense, they are an elite defensive team. It's another way of saying that their defense is their offense. When they're putting the ball in the basket, they're awesome. I know it sounds pretty elementary, but when they actually are making shots, it's awesome. So the question is, and if you look at their –
what was it last year? Do you remember what it was last year? Was it middle of the pack? Was it actually top 5? Because I think I remember hearing that stat that was a very telling thing. Like, yes, it sounds simplistic, but I think there's a massive jump for them after a make.
Well, last year when they brought in Ryan Anderson and Eric Gordon, I thought they might be one of the worst defensive teams in the league, but they ended up being a mid-level defensive team for most of the season. This year they're playing at a high level defensively. So if you look at their games, they're generally blowing out their opponents. They haven't had a lot of close games. So I look at them. I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed that they got Luc Mbah a Moute and P.J. Tucker. One of the things about Chris Paul that has impacted this team, Chris Paul's presence on the roster got them P.J. Tucker and Mbah a Moute. They had relationships with him dating back to their teen years in the case of Tucker, and they signed those guys away from other teams, defensive plus players, that has helped them. The question for me will be with this team is when they have a bad night, when they are not getting Ryan Anderson and Eric Gordon shooting really well, when they are not blasting their threes, can they win in those middle ground games? That, to me, is how you determine a champion, because so often when you look at championship teams, it's their wide margin for error. Right now, the Rockets look phenomenal, and they may be there. They may be there at the end, but I still have to see that under pressure, which we're going to see eventually.
We're talking with Brian Windhorst. Final thought before I say goodbye. Is there a name when you're making the calls, and you know how excited we all get about trades, but is there a name that kind of leads most conversations? And pay attention to this, could be the first bigger name on the block.
I think everybody's watching DeAndre Jordan right now. But if I were a G, I mean, you know, there's rumors out there about DeAndre. I won't get into that really, but if I were a GM right now and I had bullets to fire, I had the ability to make a major trade, I wouldn't do anything until I saw the Thunder stabilize, because I would just want to make 100% sure that Paul George is not available in February. Now, I'm not saying that he is. I want to be 100% clear on this, because you get into the blogosphere and then all of a sudden I got the news desk breathing down my neck, okay? I'm not saying he is, but I'm saying if I had high draft picks, if I had good young pieces, if I had expiring contracts and I was looking to make the whale move, why would I sniff around DeAndre Jordan when I could wait and see if something happens with Paul George later on? To me, that's what the smart money out there is doing. Some of these teams that have bullets to fire, so to speak.
I think that's good, and I think that's responsible, the way you did it. We won't tweet out Windhorst says Paul George on the move, all right? How about that?
Thank you very much. It happens more than, unfortunately, I'd like.
It'd actually be great if it happened for us, not for you, but we won't do that to you. Thanks, buddy.
Take care.
Brian Windhorst. Hit us up, 100flowers.com Twitter feed. It's at Russillo Show. And reminding you that it's V Week. Please join ESPN and the V Foundation in the fight against cancer. Visit v.org/donate. All donations benefit the V Foundation for Cancer Research. Shohei Ohtani headed to Major League Baseball and headed to the L.A. Angels. How that story happened, what went down, and why there's also an element of this that should maybe worry Angels fans. That's Buster Olney's story right here on ESPN Radio.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Breaking news on today, and it's from the world of baseball. And I do think that this story happened 10 years ago. It would be nonstop coverage of it, and it should be more of a priority for all of our shows here because Shohei Ohtani, 23-year-old outfielder and potential top-of-rotation starter, Japanese baseball player, as they call him, Japanese Babe Ruth. We knew there was a lot of teams in on this, and he ends up just an hour or so ago signing with the Los Angeles Angels, and somebody who knows the story very well from a lot of different angles. Joins us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, one of the best baseball guys going. It is Buster Olney. What's up, Buster?
What's up, Ryan? What a fun day.
I know. I love this story. I can't wait. I mean, the first time I had read about him, heard about him, saw the piece on him, I go, okay, what's real here? So let's try to get a little timeline thing here going. There were all these teams that felt like that were, oh, hey, it's going to be the Cubs, it's going to be this team. What happened? How did it end up with him with the Angels?
Oh, boy. And I'll tell you flat out that teams from the beginning of this process, when they began scouting Ohtani, when they were going over, traveling, we heard about teams going over to watch him in Japan this summer, as they prepared for the bidding process, as they met with him this week, they were trying to figure out what he was looking for. And to this moment, even after he picks the Angels, I don't think anybody really has a big feel. He's been a giant mystery all along. Nez Balelo, his agent, put out a statement saying that he felt a lot of warmth from the Angels, and he was excited about joining that team. Who knows what the tipping point was, because the financial landscape was essentially equal because of the international signing rules. One of my questions is, was Mike Trout in some form or fashion involved in the recruiting of Ohtani? Because that's the one seeming advantage that the Angels had over every other team. They could trot out the world's best player. And Trout is such a warm individual, and I'm sure that if he was in the room, he probably put on a really a great show for Ohtani and made it very clear to him that he couldn't wait to have him over and to help to try to beat the Astros.
So in this answer, then, tell me why it wasn't some of the other teams, and is this about meeting his demands and his quiz and like how he's going to be used? I assume if he had this many teams after him, then they will use him the exact way he expects to be used, whatever that is, right?
Yeah, and I think every team, because he was sort of akin to the college basketball recruit who was saying, I want to start and I want to be the point guard, and every coach is going to tell that kid, okay, well, come on in, and then we'll see. I think that's how all 30 teams in baseball, we're looking at Ohtani. Okay, come on in, and we'll see if we can make this work. I'm sure the Angels will give it a try. They do have the advantage, being in the American League, of giving him some access to the DH a couple days a week. I know a lot of baseball people think that as he goes through a 162-game schedule, that eventually he'll become more of a pitcher than any kind of a position player or serve as a designated hitter. But you knew the Angels, going into it, like every other team, they were going to give him an opportunity to do that.
Okay, so, man, that still sounds a lot like we're going to Americanize this guy and go, yeah, we'll let you hit a little bit here or there. It also makes way more sense for an American League team.
Well, the practical stand, purely, and I did a piece on this a few weeks ago and talked to different guys who had been in that role where they tried to be dual pitchers and hitters. It's extremely difficult to try to do both just because of the demands of each of the positions. I think the Angels probably, because of how their pitching staff is structured, they're very well equipped to go to a six-man rotation, and that would facilitate Ohtani. And because of the rest you need the day before a start, the rest you might want the day after a start, it might be that if he starts on a Monday, could have Tuesday off, could serve as a DH on a Wednesday and a Thursday. Maybe a Friday, off on Saturday, back out on the mound on Sunday. We saw, in Japan, along with pitching once a week, he got about 350 plate appearances. So it's not like he's serving as a hitter, DH, every moment that he's not pitching.
Shohei Ohtani signs with the Angels. Buster Olney with that story here at Russillo Show, ESPN Radio. Can you tell me a bit more about the money and how the structure changed for players under 25 and how everybody seemed to be stockpiling this international bonus money.
Yeah, and I basically think that the money aspect of it was completely irrelevant because, the kid, if he had waited 2 years, and I had so many agents tell me that if they were representing him, they would have told him, look, you would be smart to wait 2 years to make this jump because if he had waited till after 2019, he would have been in line to make $200+ million. That's what I was hearing from teams about what his value would be in the open market as a free agent. But the kid at age 23 decided that he wanted to come here now, even though he now goes into a situation where he has a minimal bonus. The Angels, $2.3 million. And then the first couple of years, he basically is going to be making minimum wage. So he's
$500,000?
Basically, yeah, minimum salary. That's what he's in line to make as he starts his career. So rather than wait 2 years and go for that big dollar, he wants to play against the highest level of competition. And that decision, while it was certainly perplexing to a lot of agents, I think it really reinforced the idea that this was a kid that you want to invest in.
Have you heard from anyone that said, you know what, I don't think he's going to be that good?
No, everybody, as a pitcher, he's a high-end guy, throws 101 miles an hour, and you can find the clips on YouTube of how great his breaking stuff is. His command is, still a work in progress. As a hitter, he's got power. He's 6'3", hits the ball left center field. He's thought to be a better pitcher than he is a hitter, and he's been clocked running to first base as fast as Mike Trout. So he's the total package in terms of being an athlete. I mean, let's say for argument's sake that the pitching thing didn't work out. He certainly would have the tools to try to be to transition into a full-time hitter, which is why so many general managers are telling me that his value would have been off the charts if he had just waited.
But no gyro ball, right?
I have not heard about a gyro ball, right?
Okay, just double check. I want to ask you about Stanton and the Yankees and what's going on there. But one last question, because you had the story this morning on .com and I was reading it. The Angels, yay, we won. But what do the Angels have to worry about as far as baseball is concerned with any team that got Ohtani?
Well, I think, there's been so much focus on this, so much scrutiny that already you're hearing from executives that they think that in the end, because of all the attention on him, that there probably is going to be some kind of review/investigation from Major League Baseball. And Major League Baseball has been warning teams, unlike any other time involving any other player, about breaking rules in this case. And we saw last month when they busted the Braves and they gave a lifetime ban to their general manager for their actions. They put everybody on notice. And so I suspect that just to satisfy other teams who maybe weren't happy with the process, that could happen.
Okay, Stanton, Yankees. How has this story changed in the last 24 hours?
Well, I think all along, I mean, let's face it, as people were talking about, the potential deals with the Marlins and, the Cardinals, the Marlins and the Giants, that really didn't pass through the most important portal, and that is, what does Giancarlo Stanton want? It's been a surprise that there hasn't been more communication between Stanton and the Marlins about what he wants, because he completely controls this process. And so if he's only willing to accept a deal to a small handful of teams, the Dodgers, the Yankees, then at some point the Marlins, who are just desperate to shed salary, are going to have to deal with one of those teams. And much in the same way we saw when Alex Rodriguez became available in the offseason 2003, 2004, the Red Sox had a shot at him. They didn't get him, and the Yankees wound up getting him in a sweetheart deal. And that could be what happens here. If he's willing to go to the Yankees, there's certainly some structural things that could work out between the Marlins and the Yankees, because at some point the Marlins are so debt-ridden, the pressure is on them if they want to shed $295 million in salary to make a deal with a team that Stan's willing to go to.
Thank you, Buster. This was awesome, man. Enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, Ryan. Take care, man.
Buster Olney, all this stuff. You can read that investigation story, too, on Ohtani. Basically, Manfred, the commissioner, going, whoever gets him, we're going to be looking into this thing to make sure there's not some wink-wink deal down the road. That is on ESPN.com. The Russillo Show is on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance, comparing rates to help you save. Now, that's Progressive. Call or click today and find out how much Progressive could save you. Okay, up next, why college football, at least for the head coaches, are just like Christmas parties. It's ESPN Radio. Okay, Christmas parties. I was listening to my man Rude Jude just the other day, And he was having people call in to complain about their Christmas parties from work, their corporate, their office Christmas parties. I forgot about Christmas parties because I don't have any friends, and I don't really go to any ever. And then I'll go to the gym, and I'll see like a dude, and he'd be like, oh, I'm dying, Christmas party season. I go, that's right. You have friends. You're part of society. We used to have a Christmas party here at ESPN. That was a long time ago. And the first couple years, I think I was working here. I wasn't a full-time employee, so maybe I wasn't allowed to go. And then I think maybe the third year I was part-time. I could have gone, and I didn't. And then I don't know what happened, but they shut that one down. That's over. They used to let everybody go to it. Like, you got to kill somebody to get a Super Bowl ESPN the Magazine invite. I couldn't even get invites to that like the first few years. And I was on air, I think, yeah. So it comes down to a simple question. Do you deserve a Christmas party? If we took calls on it, everybody would call up and say, yeah, I deserve a Christmas party. I'm right. I'm the employee. I heard people calling in my man Rude Jude saying, if it wasn't for us, the employee, what would the business be? And I thought, that's one way of looking at it. But if I owned a company, now it depends on what company it is, I may say to myself, yeah, I could throw a Christmas party or I could not throw a Christmas party. But, like, do you really think that if it wasn't for you, it would depend on the business you are running. I think if all of us are being honest with ourselves at times, many of us are very replaceable. Hell, even I'm replaceable, okay? But the point is that if you thought if you and your 10 buddies left your, I don't know, your cabinet installation job because you didn't have a Christmas party, the guy that owns the cabinet installation company would probably find 10 other guys to be able to install cabinets. That's my point. So then it comes down to kind of this right, because guys were complaining that they couldn't bring plus ones, and then it turned to this whole different conversation. But what happens is, and this happens in life all the time, is that if there are a larger number of people arguing for that thing, then that group always thinks they're right? They're going, hey, majority rules. We are the employees. We want a Christmas party. Where's the eggnog? And I actually think it reminds me a lot of college football, because there's so many players that hate the system. There's so many members of the media that hate the system, but there's all the coaches going, yeah, I sign a contract. I can leave whenever I want. There's almost no penalty. And if there is a buyout, the boosters pay for that one too, or it's made up in the new contract. I never have to wait. I have to recruit players and tell them the right things, that I'm committed. But as soon as I get my dream job, if I'm Willie Taggart, I can leave Oregon after a year, because that's the business I'm in. What do you tell young people if you're successful? Hey, get in the right racket, right? Get into pharmaceuticals. Get into that deal. Medical equipment, Stryker. Sign up with those guys. Get your book of business. Next thing you know, you're in Cabo 4 times a year. So if the college football coach, who, by the way, is a grad assistant for no money, probably loses the first love of his life because she's like, screw this guy. He's a GA now, making $12,000 a year, sleeping on a couch, and I can't do the ramen noodle thing anymore. Now, if she's in for the long haul, like all of these head coaches that have this thing that's so great that all of us seem to hate, and I don't hate it, like that's their business. That's the way the rules are set up. Yes, it's unfair. But just because there's a million people complaining about it, does it mean that you're right? That because you're in the majority? And I think that's the difference with college football and some of this other stuff, because the majority does rule all the time. Like, I always look at my situation in my town. I pay a ton of taxes. I should be getting a rebate every year. I should be a community hero. They should be honoring me every year, going, here's Ryan. He's made it to 42. His carbon footprint is low. He doesn't use any of the facilities. He never brings kids to the swing sets. He doesn't use the parks. He doesn't use any of the schooling system. And he's paying a full boat. Now, if I propose, I think over 40, no kids, I should get a tax rebate, I'd be right, but everybody would vote against me. Everybody would go, no, you're wrong. I go, well, wait a minute. Why are you right? Because there are more of you? No, I am the college football head coach in this scenario. I am right. I should be taken care of. I'm helping keep population numbers down, which is a whole nother topic. And yet everybody would vote against me because you would be in the majority and you would say you're right. So with this college football thing, there's so many of you that think, oh, the college football coaches, they shouldn't be able to do all these things. They should have to sit out a year. They should have to say the life of the contract. Why are you right? Because there's more of you? I'm not going to go to one Christmas party this year. And that's not a political statement. That's an attendance issue. Bruschi tells a great Phillip Rivers story. Phillip Rivers was talking smack with the Pats and somebody on the Pats absolutely destroyed Rivers to where his own teammates laughed. That story's on previously, and the pick 6 for this week. I'm just going to go undefeated to get back to 500. No problem. It's ESPN Radio. Russillo Show. It's ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Get all that Christmas shopping done. I haven't started. What's up? Not a huge surprise. I don't think anybody's surprised about that. What did I do the other day that was pretty... Oh, I cleaned up my fridge. We had salad dressings. I found a salad dressing from 2015 and eggs from March. Winner. Before we do our weekend picks, speaking of winners, previously is with Tedy Bruschi, and we started talking about Phillip Rivers, and he told a great story about how Rivers was going at his team, the Pats, and one of his teammates just mic dropped him.
Previously on the Ryen Russillo Show.
Does he talk a ton of garbage the entire... Did you hate him?
I didn't hate him.
Did you like him?
I didn't like him either. But, yeah, Phillip does talk a lot of trash. He's very...
Do you remember anything he said to you?
He's an intense competitor. Yeah.
Come on, give us one.
Okay, I just remember him barking back and forth with us in the huddle. And I couldn't believe this quarterback is motivating our defense to try and, knock his head off or something like that. But Mike Vrabel had one of the best comebacks I've ever heard in the history of comebacks when Phillip Rivers was talking trash to us, and Vrabel just went almost to their huddle, and he says, "Listen, you'll never be Drew Brees. We know it, and they know it." And he pointed right to his huddle.
Wow.
And everybody in the huddle went, "Oh!" And we sort of looked at him and just sort of smiled and nodded our heads. And that was that.
That's a pretty good comeback. Pretty good. But Rivers has been great, and I think for all the Rivers jokes, because I made them all the time too, like, hey, it's a close Chargers game. Here we go, Phillip Rivers running around like a crazy man. Everybody's trying to kill him. He's the least sacked quarterback of anyone in the league right now, so that offensive line that we beat up on deserves a lot of credit, and they have two of the best edge guys going, and this Chargers team is the best team in their division, even if the standings don't necessarily tell us that. Before the picks, let's get you the weekend preview. The Russillo Show. Call to action. Brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit us at geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. Do you have any music?
To the far side, intercepted. The Ryen Russillo Show's
29-yard
pick six.
What's the music? Oh, come on. Let's give us something. We got 4 minutes here. The weekend. Bubba's got a huge date tonight. Not her size, just the anticipation. That came out wrong. Why don't you play some 90s? Play some 90s. How about some more Bush? Huh? Do you know the deal of the lead singer, Bush, Surdy? This guy would be, if you knew him, if you were older, this would be your hero.
Why is that?
Do you know his deal? Like, I think he played professional soccer for a little bit.
Whoa.
And he was the lead singer of a Brit band.
Wait, they're British?
Bush, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They were good when I was in college, so I don't expect you to know anything. So I'm not holding any of this against you. Because my first instinct was like, you don't even know this stuff? Like, check him out, lead singer.
No, I listen to their songs. I didn't know either of those facts.
This is like, who's that Kevin dude who I think is amazing, the amazing soccer player, Kevin De
Bruyne?
De Bruyne?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Redhead?
This would be like if De Bruyne was the lead singer of Radiohead also. That might be an exaggeration. Do we have any 90s music? There we go. 6 under 500. All I have to do is go 6-0.
Raiders at Chiefs.
Oakland +4. It's not happening this weekend for Oakland. It's never happening. Go ahead and take them +4, even though Kansas City's due, but I hate their defense now. And Alex Smith no longer the league MVP.
Vikings at Panthers.
Okay, Minnesota favored here on the road, -2.5. I'm going to go ahead and take the Panthers for no reason other than the number.
Eagles at Rams.
Eagles, did they peak too early? Is the blueprint out for Carson Wentz? Did they read their own clippings? I have sources that tell me they have not peaked and that they did not get hot at the wrong time. So give me Philadelphia +2 at the Rams.
Seahawks at Jaguars.
Seattle, a lot of people are going to be loving this with the points. Jacksonville, blah, they're a little overrated because you watch Seattle take care of the Eagles, who had only one loss prior to that primetime game. Don't fall for that. Take Jacksonville at home -2.5.
Ravens at Steelers.
Throw the records out when these two play. Forget it. Forget it, man. This is just old school, 3 yards, a cloud of dust. Smash mouth football. It's actually not. I don't think either of these teams can run the football all that well. Le'Veon obviously can, but I think of Pittsburgh still more as a spread team. I'm going to go ahead and take Baltimore plus the 4.5 because I think Pittsburgh plays down to every opponent, even though Baltimore today is a playoff team, which blows my mind. I'm going to double check something here to make sure. This is almost like I'm doing the podcast live because I don't want you going into the weekend with bad information. I wanted to double-check Baltimore's rushing offense, and it's middle of the pack, so it's a little bit better now than I thought it was. All right. That's it, man. That's pretty much it. I don't know. What are you doing this weekend, Bubba?
Just hanging out. I got my friends and I are contemplating a Europe trip next year, so we're meeting today, early planning stages. So we're doing some planning tonight. So,
wait a minute, you're having a plan. So you have a title for drinking on Friday.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
10 seconds.
Okay. All right. Everybody enjoy the holiday parties. You deserve them, sort of. That'll do it for us. The Russillo Show. It's ESPN Radio.